"Get out of my country," said the nation of immigrants. That sort of hypocrisy is illustrated in these political cartoons that I'm sure you've seen before. The idea that a nation comprised of immigrants suddenly doesn't want any more immigrants has become what could probably be said to be the defining political issue of our time. And it's really a lot of issues wrapped into one. But politicians don't really like to treat it like that. Politicians like to say that it's basically an easy problem, package up a solution, hand it out to voters, because that is what is electable. That's what is going to get you into office. But the core issue is racism. And politicians don't want to admit that, because there is no magic law that you can just sign into place to get rid of racism. Because if there was, we would have already done it. But you can't do that, so we haven't done that yet. But that's not saying, oh, this is a difficult problem, mainly because of racism. It's not going to get you elected, because you have to say that the problem is solvable, etc. And I think the whole dialogue is a good place to start. It's good that racism and immigration are being talked about, but I think the scope is too limited, because we forget the original victims of the whole immigration issue, and that's the Native Americans. The genocide that Native Americans suffered at the hands of whites, which was historically one of the worst ever recorded, has set them back socially and economically in ways that they have essentially never recovered from ever. As you can see up here, highest unemployment rate, highest poverty rate, more likely to do hard drugs and become alcoholics than any other minority group. Whites have yet to make any sort of meaningful reparations to Native Americans ever, and it's now 2015, nothing has been done. So what is the not easy solution? What is the actual way to address this? Well, for starters, white people need to be sent back to the continent they came from. White people are currently occupying the land that they stole from Native Americans with genocide and murder, and the first step is obviously to return them to the original continent. Now, African Americans are part of this issue as well. Now, while they did not want to come to America, they are still here on occupied Native American land nonetheless. So what do? Well, if I handcuffed a homeless person to your dishwasher, you wouldn't let them stay there because they're there against their will. No, you'd want them out of there too. So the problem remains. But African Americans have also suffered huge injustices at the hands of whites, which is why they're not going back to Africa alone. They will be accompanied by 300,000 white slaves, which they will treat as their legal property. Now, Mexicans aren't getting off the hook either, because my research actually indicated that a lot of Mexicans are in fact from Spain, which is in Europe where white people come from. And that's a big problem. So the difficulty comes into play when you realize that most Mexicans are part Native American, part European, part white. So what do? Well, ultimately I realized that the best thing to do would be to send half of them back where they came from and let the remaining population deal with the fallout. Now, Jews are unique, and I'm going to mention them instead of other smaller minority groups, such as Asians and Middle Easterners, where you can essentially fill in the gaps, because Jews are a unique problem. And this is because they have white privilege, because they're what we call white passing. If you saw a Jew on the street, you may not be able to immediately identify them as Jewish. In fact, you may even think that they're white. And this is a big problem. Hitler knew this. So what do? Well, we can't send them back to Palestine, a war-torn area full of destruction, so they will be resituated to Antarctica, where the white nations of the world will be in charge of supplying them with food and resources to build a Jewish utopia. Now you're probably thinking that this is all a little bit out there, right? It's a little bit crazy, and maybe the problem is getting better, right? It's 2015, things are better. Guess what? You're wrong. Experts have now confirmed there are more racists in America than ever before in history. Now obviously when I say racist, I'm using the academic definition of the term, which means white human. but the results are the same either way you look at it. Now, I know you recognize this school over here. But what about this one? Well, this is Dartmouth in Massachusetts. And students at Dartmouth actually take this seriously. They actually take my ideas seriously. Just last month, Black Lives Matter protesters occupied the Dartmouth Library and chanted Black Lives Matter and shouted, "Fuck you, you filthy white fox." And, according to the Washington Times, a Dartmouth reporter pinned a girl to a wall and called her a filthy white bitch. Now, I don't know what the deal is with this school over here. I don't know why students here evidently don't care about racism as much as students at Dartmouth. I don't know, maybe Dartmouth students are more moral? Are they more aware than you guys? You tell me. All I know is that I have never seen someone stand up against white oppression here at APU like they did at Dartmouth. So what are you going to do? Thanks for listening.